Do you know where, in which park there's Tai Chi practice here and there? Because those people don't need to register or reserve the space. They just go to the park. They're park users. How do you know?
We go with the common. That's why you have that work. You go with the information that our maintenance staff will have because they're out there every day maintaining. You can go with information from just by talking with people in the neighborhood. And who's here. You can learn a lot just by listening to people who live nearby as to what goes on, and then finding out who we need to talk to. That's the point of the work that has to be done before we would bring you an actual site proposal. We would need to be able to tell you, and we talk with all the users, and these are the users. It's the soccer players, it's the moms group, it's the Tai Chi group, it's the seniors walking club. It's all the neighbors around, and we've been able to work out these issues with them so that we remain community building while still providing an opportunity for dogs and dog owners to have healthy off-leash areas.
And this is under the heading Safety of Park Users and Dogs. Overtly aggressive, overly assertive, overly unruly, and under-socialized dogs should be discouraged from visiting the parks. So there's a couple of words, I think, that need to be defined there, such as overtly aggressive, assertive, unruly, and under-socialized. And so who defines that? And then should be discouraged. The word discouraged is troubling to me. And so how do we determine, how do you as a staff, frankly, determine what dogs fit under those categories?
That's where we would need the help of a couple resources. One would be the group that was working with us, because they have a lot of experience and knowledge typically. We'd work with our contracted animal control people who may have even identified some of these animals for us. And we would work with our code and sheriff's resources as well. Discouraged is there because you do need to talk with people. And so you may want to discourage somebody from doing it. We aren't quite at the point of mandating it, but our codes do mandate certain kinds of things like that. You can't have that type of vicious animal. So that's already in our codes. But that's why we would try to work with the community to say, for us, what does that mean?
Okay.
This is not going to be a perfect science. This is going to be still some work together. But we do want to try to discourage people from bringing a vicious dog and letting them run off leash.
Okay. And the reason why I bring up the word discourage is because I want it to be stronger than discouraged. Like, I don't want to allow vicious dogs. And so that's why I brought that up.
If the council would like us to strengthen.
But I don't know how you define an overly assertive dog at this point.
But we do have some protections in our current codes about that.
Great, thank you. I think there is a question, at least in my mind, about if there happens to be an overly assertive dog, let's say in a fenced area or even in a non-fenced area, and a resident who happens to be walking by, having their child play in the park, etc., calls code enforcement, calls 911, they call somebody. I think we probably will need to address how do you assure prompt response when there's an issue, because if the dog owner takes their little dog on the leash and then walks them home, and if nobody knows who they are, how do we address that issue? And I'm not sure you need to answer that now, but as I as I contemplate this issue, I mean, that's one of the things.
Yeah, your first call is 911.
Okay.
I mean, that'll get your quickest response. And Captain Caldwell's here tonight to answer any questions related to that, but that's your first call. And it's also, that's why you need really the help of what we're calling the citizens group to help us stay alert to that. People know other people and their dogs. I mean, there's a lot of help out there. And it's not going to be all the time, obviously. And You may, if you have a fenced-in area, it's going to be different than if you have an off-leash area. So that's why you have to really look at what time frames, if you have a straight off-leash, all that kind of conversation.
I'm just wondering, how many of you are out there in the audience are dog owners? Put your hand down if... I didn't say yet. Okay, there were a lot more hands up. Put your hands down if you are an owner of a dog that is not registered with the city of Cupertino. No, we're not taking any names, but you are on camera. All right, thank you.
We know about a third are, okay.
So I guess my next question to staff then is how do we assure registration then of dogs?
You sort of picked out Section D and the other thing, under public nuisance, it says any person convicted. There's a section under public nuisance. Is that only apply to the dogs off lead in parks, or is there anything else that applies to that we're changing the penalty on?
Well, all of that one that has the public nuisance would change from a misdemeanor to an infraction, that entire section.
Right, so there's animals running at large, I understand.
The only thing that's left as a misdemeanor is vicious dogs.
Right, my question is there anything, because it's just listed under general public nuisance here, are we changing any other, so there would be, we will have changed dog off lead in park, and not picking up after your dog to be a public nuisance. And the question is there anything else under the public nuisance section that we're changing the public nuisance on the way this is written, other than just those three things about dogs?
We're not changing dogs off leash in parks. But everything gets listed in public nuisance. That section, the public nuisance, would change from a misdemeanor to an infraction.
Right, but I don't...
There's a whole series of sections there. You don't...
I'm not sure you're understanding, or maybe I'm not. Are you saying, are there any other types of public nuisance that does not relate to dogs?
There are other types of public nuisance. What I want to make sure is that we're only addressing the public nuisance as it relates to the three things we're talking about, dogs, and we haven't changed it.
It's in the dog section.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
I don't have the whole thing. I just have the change.
Chapter 8 is dogs and cats.
Got it. So it would affect dogs and cats.
This
You know, we had this discussion about liability and whatever. Just because the city allows hours and off-leash and everything does it automatically put us on the risk of liability, or is that just a judgment call when an actual case comes in?
Both. The city liability under the California Tort Claims Act is state statute. There's no what's called common law nuisance. So what you would have had to do is to create a dangerous condition of public property. Just merely because you allow something doesn't mean that you're automatically liable. If you actually had some knowledge that a particular situation was dangerous, you put off-leash dogs there anyway, for example, next to a playground, next to this, that, the other thing, where there was some knowledge of the danger, then you'd be liable. But in a particular, but what you're doing here would not tonight, what you're being asked to do would not automatically create additional liability.
The second question, Mark.